Over my 15 years of construction, I've encountered hundreds of contract variations because they are most likely to happen. But what is a variation and how to manage variations effectively to succeed in the project? Well, these are very good questions, and here in this video I'm going to walk you through the most important 5 points that you need to know in order to handle variations very well. And make sure to stay until the end because I'll show you a variation example that you will not see anywhere else. And let's start. Okay, so point number 1, what is a variation? Well, a variation is a change in the project or an alteration in the project. Usually when you have a contract, your scope of work will be defined by a set of documents. So you will have the conditions of contract and you will have, for example, specifications, you will have drawings, you will have BOQ. And these documents are called the contract documents. These documents together, they define your scope of work. So as per these documents, you will be executing the work. When something is new to these documents, or when you change something that is available already or coming in these documents, then this is a variation because the client cannot change everything he needs. You have a contract and there are contract documents that define the scope. If we need to change anything that is in the contract or in any of the contract documents, then it becomes a variation. And usually these documents will have a priority. So one of them will have higher priority than other. And as per the priority of these documents, you can determine whether or not your variation or your claim is valid. So for example, let's say that something in the conditions of contract that is contradicting with something that is in the specifications. So if the conditions of contract have higher priority than the specification, then the conditions of contract will supersede what is there in the specification. And sometimes people make a mistake judging whether this is a variation or not. How is that? Let's assume that there is one item that is coming in your project drawings, but it is not there in your project BOQ. So sometimes people will say, well, the item is not in my project BOQ. It means it is not included in my price. In order to do this item, I need a variation. But when we look at the contract documents and the priority of documents, we will see, for example, the drawings have higher priority than the BOQ. Which means that if there is an item coming in the drawings, but it is not in the BOQ, and your contract is lump sum, then still this item is part of your scope of work and you have to do it even if it is not included in your BOQ. Because it is part of some other document of your contract and this document has higher priority than the BOQ. So it's a very important step to be able to judge whether this variation or this claim is valid or not before you go and claim for it. And the second point we need to discuss here is the types of variation. So we have 3 types of variations. Actually, we have the change in quantity, and we have the change in specifications, and we have the change in both quantities and the specifications. So the first one, which is change in quantities, which means that the quantity that you are required to do as per your contract has changed. It can be more or it can be less, omission or addition. So this is a change in quantity. And usually when there is a change in the quantity, you will need to substantiate the quantity, the contract quantity and the revised quantity. You will need to show how the quantity has changed. So you will need to calculate, and the change, as we said, can be less or more, omission or addition, but you will have to substantiate your quantity. You will need to show how did the quantity change. The change in specifications is when the specifications of something has changed. For example, you have wooden doors and now you are requested to do steel doors. Your contract say wooden doors, and then there is some kind of instruction that tells you, no, these doors has to be steel doors. Or instead of installing porcelain tiles, I need to install marble tiles. Or it can be a change in the brand, for example. Instead of using X brand, we need to use Y brand. So these are all changes in the specifications of the materials. And in that case, you will need to substantiate the rate and not the quantity, because the rate is coming from the specification of the item. So you will have to substantiate somehow the new rate by vendor quotations or by rate build up, whatever. But you will need to substantiate the rate in case the change is in the specifications. And the third point, when there is a change in both quantities and the specifications, So in that case, you will have to substantiate the quantities and you will have to substantiate the rate as well. So for the quantities, you will need to calculate the quantity as per contract and the revised quantity, and you need to show both. And for the rate, you will get the original rate from the contract, and the new rate you will have to substantiate it somehow by vendor quotations or by rate analysis or whatever means required. And quickly, if we are meeting for the first time, I am Ahmed Adel and you are watching Cost Engineering Professional. And here I help you develop the required skills and enhance your knowledge to elevate your cost engineering career. So if this is what you want, you can quickly subscribe. Now, the third point that we need to discuss is variation process or procedure. So what is the process or the procedure required for a variation? First thing, you need instructions. So these can be engineer instructions or verbal instructions or a comment on a shop drawing that you submit. Any kind of instructions which is basically someone is telling you, do this instead of this. So that means you have got or received clear instructions that you need to go for something that is not in your contract. But if the instructions are verbal, then you will have to send something that is called confirmation of verbal instruction. Because sometimes the client will come to your site, go for a site visit with you, and during the walk, they will instruct you to do something specific verbally. So you have to send a confirmation of verbal instruction, and you are asking them basically to confirm what they have verbally instructed you at site. Once you receive this confirmation of verbal instructions or CVI, then you can go to the next step. But the most important thing is to have clear instructions. Can be engineer instructions, confirmation of verbal instruction, or something that starts the process, because it's a change, so it's something that is not there in your contract. It has to start at some point. So this starting point is the instructions. And then you will go to the second point, which is the notice of variation. Once you receive the instructions somehow, you will send a notice to the client notifying them that due to this instruction, there will be a variation. And you can choose any form for that, but the meaning should be what I am telling you, that please note that there is a variation here, there is a change, and we are going to be submitting the third thing, which is called request for variation order. So basically you have a contract, and let's say your contract is 5 million. So under this contract, the client can pay you up to 5 million. But due to this change, now the client needs to pay more than 5 million. This contract has to be amended somehow. So we are requesting for something that is called variation order, which is an addition to our existing agreement or existing contract. And in some of the cases, we go to make a contract amendment. When you send the request for variation order, basically you will have everything related to your variation. And if the client accepts your request for variation order, then they will go to point number 4 and they will issue you a variation order or a contract amendment. So now, because your contract is amended or because you have a variation order, you can claim for the extra amount that is not there in your contract. So in short, instructions, notice of variation, request for variation order, variation order. Very simple. Now the fourth point is how to calculate a variation. And the most important part when I am talking about how to calculate a variation is that when you calculate a variation, you are comparing two drawings. A contract drawing to a revised drawing. You will use only the drawings, you will not use the BOQ, because sometimes the people will say the contract quantity will be taken from the BOQ. No. The contract quantity will be taken from the contract drawings. Even if the contract quantity from the drawings is not matching the quantity in the BOQ, still you have to compare drawing to drawing. Contract drawing against revised drawing. The next thing I want to highlight here is that when you are comparing, you can calculate the change only, or you can calculate the whole item and compare it drawing to drawing. So what I'm trying to say, let's say, for example, I have 20 footings and 3 footings were added to the project. So the contract drawings say 20 footing, but the revised drawing says 23 footing. So the contract quantity versus the revised quantity is 20 versus 23. So you are comparing the whole item as per the contract to the whole item as per the revised drawings. Or sometimes you can say just there are 3 footings additional. So contract quantity 0 and the revised quantity 3. So you have these two methods or these two ways of measuring a variation. You can measure the change only, or you can measure the whole item where you have a change before and after contract and revised. And quickly let me show you my template for calculating the variation so that you can understand this concept better. So if we take a look here, we have a serial number, so we can just put 1, 2, 3 or ABC. And we have the item, and this is where the item is changing. So we will put the item that changes here, for example, isolated footings, and we can put the unit of measurement for this item that we want to make a variation for. And then we have the contract quantity and the revised quantity. So we will open drawing to drawing and we will see how much is the quantity as per the contract, and as per the revised drawing, how much is the quantity. And after that, we need to see the rate of this item. What is the contract rate of this item and what is the revised rate? And if the change is a change in the quantity only, so you will have contract rate and revised rate same, because there is no change in the specification, it is just a change in the quantity. So old quantity versus new quantity, and the rate will be same. After that, we will have the omission and the addition. So what is the omission? The omission is actually the contract amount for this item, which is equal to the contract quantity multiplied by the contract rate. So what is the old quantity multiplied by the contract rate? This is the amount that should be omitted from your contract. And then we have the addition or the revised amount, which is basically the new quantity multiplied by the revised rate. This template is general, that's why here I am keeping the rate as 2 columns, because in sometimes you will have a contract rate different from the revised rate. It is not always a change in the quantity. So if you have a contract quantity and you have a contract rate for some item, then you have a revised quantity and a revised rate as well, which we discussed previously. It's a change in the quantity and in the rate as well. Then the template will be working, or you can still use it. So here for the addition, the revised amount will be the revised quantity multiplied by the revised rate. And by the way, here in the omission, this is having a negative sign because this will be in minus. So this will be a minus amount and this will be a plus amount. And here is the summation of both, which is the net amount. So let's say, for example, I am omitting 5,000 and I am adding 6,000. So it means that the net is 1,000. Minus 5,000 plus 6,000, it will be 1,000. So this is my template for calculating the variation. It is also important to keep something that we call a variation log, because let's say your project is 2 years or 1 year. It's a long time, and within the 1 year or the 2 years, so many variations can come. So you need to have a log where you list all your variations and what is the omission, what is the addition, and what is the net, without details, just total omission, total addition, total net. For the project, you might have 10 variations, 15, 20. So you will have a log that shows you in the end what is the total omitted value from the contract and what is the total added value to the contract and what is the net added value or omitted value to your contract. Now coming to the fifth point, which is the substantiative documents. The substantiative documents are some documents that you have to attach in your request for variation order, which substantiates your variation or explains your variation. Why are you claiming extra amount, or what is happening here? And usually, or in most of the cases, the substantiative documents will be as following. The first one will be the narrative. And the narrative is actually the story of why there is a variation. And it explains that as per the instructions dated so and so, we were instructed by whoever person to change the so and so item to the new so and so item. So it is just a story of why there is a variation. It is the narrative, or it is the story behind the variation. And you will also need to attach the instructions. So the instructions, as we said, it can be engineer instructions, or it can be a confirmation of verbal instructions, or it can be some comment on a drawing, or how were you instructed to do this variation. And you also need to attach the drawings that shows your variation, the contract drawing and the revised drawing, and you can highlight in both that it was as per the contract drawing like that, and then as per the revised drawing it's now changed to become like that. So you are showing on a drawing what was the original item and what is the new item, or what is the change shown in both drawings. And of course, you also need to attach your quantity calculations. So as per the contract, or as per the contract drawing, this was the quantity, and you will put your quantity sheet or takeoff sheet, as we will see now in the example. And as per the revised, what is the new quantity and how did you calculate this quantity? So the quantity substantiation or the quantity calculation as per the contract and as per the revised should be there also as part of your substantiative documents. Also, if there is any change in the rate, so you will show that the contract rate is taken from the BOQ, so you can use the BOQ page where the item is located. And then if it's a change in the specifications, then the new rate will come from the market, and you can attach 3 vendor quotations or something. And in some cases, you will need to build up the rate or make a breakdown analysis for the new rate that you want as a revised rate. So the rate calculation should also be there. And now let's go to the most interesting part of the video, which is the example that will make you understand everything we said here. So as we can see, I have a project BOQ here, and it's for the concrete works. So I have the concrete casting for these items and the steel reinforcement and the form work. And I also have the original drawing, as you can see here, which shows I have 20 footings. So I am just trying to show you some cases of a change. So the first case will be, instead of having 20 footings like that, we have added 3 footings here, as you can see. So this is the revised drawings and this is the contract drawing. So in that case, what should we do? Let's assume that our quantity in the BOQ for the isolated footing is wrong. The quantity in the BOQ, which is a contract document, is not the same as the quantity when you calculate from the contract drawing, okay? So here, this is not happening because I have the correct quantity. So for example, the isolated footing here, as per my BOQ, it's 17.28. And when I go to the quantity here, isolated footing, F1, I have 20 numbers. And here, each footing is 1.2 into 1.2 into 0.6. So when you multiply the 4 numbers here, it's 17.28. So the volume of concrete is 17.28. So this is the quantity calculation that I am showing you here. And let's say we are fortunate or we have good luck because the calculated quantity from the contract drawing is matching our BOQ. But if it is not matching, still you will put an X here. You will not use this quantity. You will use the quantity that you measure from the contract drawing, because as we said, variation is a drawing to drawing, contract drawing against revised drawing. So here, as per the contract drawing, the foundation volume is 17.28. So this is the first volume that I have here, or the first thing. And I'll also calculate the quantity of the form work and the steel as per the contract drawing. So I'm getting these 3 numbers here. And let's say, again, we are fortunate. It is the same numbers in the BOQ. I have here the isolated footing 1468.8 and the form work 57.6, which are the 3 numbers that I am getting here. So in that case, if the variation is, as we saw here, from 20 footing to 23 footing, then we will go and calculate the case number 2, which is where we have 23 footing. Now note that here, as per the contract, I calculated 20 footing, so I calculated the whole item. I could have easily calculated only the 3 additional footings and just claim for that. Both ways work, but what I prefer is always to calculate the whole item. So as per the contract, the whole item was 20 footings, and as per the revised drawing, the whole item is 23 footings. So I'm getting a new volume of concrete and a new quantity for the steel or the form work, and here new quantity for the steel. So I have 3 new quantities. So I will go to my variation template here, and as we said, serial number, then the items, we have the concrete casting and we have the steel reinforcement and we have the form work. So as per the contract, in that case, we have these 3 quantities which we got from the quantities here. So 17.28, this is the 17.28, and for the steel reinforcement 1468, I am getting it from here. And for the form work here, 57.6, I am getting this number from here. So for my template, I am putting this as the contract quantity for 20 footings. Now the revised quantity will be the quantity for 23 footings. So here from our quantity, we have the quantity 19.87, and this is the quantity for the form work and the quantity for the steel. So I'm just taking these three numbers and I am putting them here. And the contract rate, as we discussed, and the revised rate in this case will be same, because concrete casting, did we have any change in the rate? We didn't have a change in the specification. It is just a change in the quantity. So the contract rate and the revised rate in this case will be same. Now coming to the omission or the contract amount, as per the contract, it was 17.28 multiplied by 275, which is the rate. So I am omitting here 4,752. And when we come to the addition, here I am adding the revised quantity multiplied by the revised rate, which is similar to the contract rate. So I am adding 5464.8. Now this is minus and this is plus, so when you take the net, it comes 712.8 as we can see here. And we did the same for the steel reinforcement and for the formwork. So we are getting here net amount of 700, here 991 and 300 here. So I'm getting a total net of 2,000. Of course, I am omitting, as you can see here, 13,377.6. This is omission, and the addition is 15,384.24 minus and the plus. So I am getting here a plus, which means this is an addition to the contract. So I am claiming extra 2,000 to my contract because of this variation, because we have added these three foundations. Now let's go to case number 2 here. Again, I have the same contract drawing, which shows 20 footings, as you can see here, and the type of the footing is F1. Okay, as per the revised drawing, 6 footings were changed. As we can see, they became bigger. So in this case, how will be the variation? The variation will be as following. Again, let's go back to our quantity, and this is case 1. We have calculated for the 20 footings, 1.2, 1.2, and 0.6. We calculated the quantity of the concrete and formwork and the steel. And let me go here to case 3 here, which is I am having, as you can see from the drawing, I am having 14 numbers of F1 and 6 numbers of F2. So this is F1 and this is F2, 14 numbers and 6 numbers, and the dimensions of F1, 1.2 into 1.2 into 0.6. But F2 is a little bit bigger. It's 1.5 into 2 into 0.6. So I am getting a new volume of concrete, 22.9 here, compared to the 17.28 as per the contract. Then the quantity of the formwork is also more, and the quantity of the steel is more. So in that case, we will go here to variation number 2, and I have again the contract quantity, and this is the revised quantity. Where I am getting the revised quantity from this calculation. So this is my calculation sheet here. I am showing why I am omitting this much and why I am adding this much, because originally this was the quantity and now this is the quantity. The rate, there is no change in the rate, so contract rate and the revised rate are similar, and we explained the omission and the addition and the net. And if you compare this case, variation 1 against variation 2, you will see that variation 1, the net amount is 2,006. And here, the net amount is 4,212, which makes sense actually. Why? Because as you can see, this setup or this layout will be more expensive than this layout. Why? Because here we added only 3 footings type F1, but here we changed 6 footings F1 to F2. So as per our calculations here, which is logical, we are seeing that if the change is here as per this case, then it will be more expensive than this case. So going back now, and I want to show you now the case 3. Case 3 is what? Case 3 is a combination. So originally this was the foundation layout, 20 footings again, but we are adding 3 footings of F1, and also these 6 footings, we are changing them from F1 to F2. So how can we calculate in this case? We will go back to our calculation sheet here, the quantity, and I will go to case 4 here. This is case 4. And as per case 4, we will just take off the quantity of the F1, so 17, and the F2, 6, so together 23 foundations, and the dimensions of F1 and F2, and again we are calculating the quantity of concrete and formwork and the steel. And when we go here, we have the original quantity, as we said, where we got the original quantity again from here as per the contract. this was the quantity for these 3 items. And as per the revised drawing, now we have more concrete, more steel, and more form work. And contract rate and revised rate are same for this example. So this is the omission, this is the addition, and this is the net. And as you can see here, I am getting a net of 6,219. And why it is more? Because logically, of course, this layout will be more expensive than this, and it will be more expensive than this one as well, because it's a combination of both. So this is logically how you calculate a variation. Now, if I want to substantiate this variation, this will be the calculation sheet that we will attach. How are we calculating the contract quantity, and how are we calculating the revised quantity, and from where are we getting the rate? We are getting the rate from the BOQ. As you can see, concrete casting is this much, steel reinforcement, this is the rate, and form work, this is the rate. And we are using the same 3 rates here for all the cases. I'm just showing you 3 cases. Of course, in your project, it will be only one. The foundation layout might change to some revised layout, but it will not be 3 like here. I'm just showing you 3 cases of the same item just for you to understand the concept. How are we calculating the quantity as per the original drawing, and how are we calculating the quantity as per the revised drawing? And how can we show our calculations? How can we calculate the variation? So this is a numerical example. And I'll keep a link in the description below for you to download this template, both Excel sheet and the PDF template as well, so that you can go further through it and see what you can learn more from there. And also let me know in the comments, what do you think about this video? What else do you need me to explain, or what have we missed in this video, so we can implement these ideas into the next videos related to variations. You know, I always love to hear your feedback on the content that we present here and the way it is presented and everything. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? And in this video, I show you how to create a cost estimation template from scratch. Go watch it, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching. See you.